Nacimos acá, 66 años de vida. Lo que debe sentir la persona que esté viendo lo que aquí está pasando. No voy a sentir nostalgia, tristeza. Bueno, es importante que cuando uno pasa un momento como el que yo estoy pasando ahorita,
Claro, sí, ahorita poco.
después, bueno, me da alegría.
Llegó la noche fatal.
Eso es bueno, eso es bueno.
Llegó la noche fatal, noche de agonía.
¿Qué opina usted de este proceso de división política que tenemos entre, como decimos popularmente aquí, chavistas y adecos, producido por la señora Tamara Villamil?
Yo le digo a la gente, al entrar a mi cuarto, primero tienen que tocar a Chávez. Y el que no lo quiera no puede entrar, porque ¿por dónde va a entrar sin tocarlo? ¿Ah?
Ahorita la sedimentación nos está matando a todos. Ante todo por la plaga, por la rata, por muchos insectos que se van acercando hacia los palafitos.
Pero la sedimentación sí nos está afectando muchísimo, porque la gente está emigrando, Congo está quedando solo. Y es algo que nos aterra. Y Congo tiene poco tiempo ya. El tiempo de Congo es muy corto de vida.
Porque el pueblo ya está perdido, en pocas palabras. Ya esto es monte y culebra.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good day. We're from all over the world, so I think you are too. So wherever you are, I hope you're having a nice day. And I am absolutely thrilled to be here to moderate this discussion with three amazing women who are involved with this truly incredible film, Once Upon a Time in Venezuela. I'm Debra Zimmermann. I'm the executive director of Women Make Movies, an organization in New York that supports women filmmakers. And I'm very, very proud that we actually have been involved with this project since 2013, quite a long time, as part of our production assistance program. And the story of the film is as extraordinary as the women in it and as the women behind the camera. It's been called sublimely disturbing, prophetic, illuminating, visually immersive, deceptively lovely and humorous to all of its critical acclaim. And I'm really excited to have this opportunity to have this conversation. So let me introduce first Anabel Rodriguez Rios, the director of the film, Marianela Maldonado, the writer, and Claudia Lepage, who is very much involved with the production in Venezuela. Annabelle is joining us from Vienna. Claudia actually is in Caracas, and Marianela is in California, and I'm here in New York. So, so I wanted to start just by saying that when I watched it again, I was really struck by how much the film really reminded me of what is going on in this country. And it's not something that I really thought about. I saw many cuts of the film, so it's not something that I thought about when I was watching it before. And I think that it really has to do with what's happened over the last couple of months. So, Annabelle, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you came to the story, how you made it. I know that it went through many, many titles, from Growing Up in Oil to The Swamp of Hopes, which was my least favorite title, to El Último Año de Congo, El Congo Mirador, to, I think, by the way, which is a brilliant title now, Once Upon a Time in Venezuela. So please tell us more about the film.
Well, Debbie, actually, this first title, Growing Up in Oil, was suggested by you. Yeah,
I was. I did
given
realize
given that we were working, Marianela, Maldonado, and me. Actually, I wanted to tell you all here that we are sisters into this adventure of life of making films. Claudia, Marianela, and me. And back then, in 2012, Marianela and me shot a film called The Barrel. And this film was about this group of brothers and sisters that were fishing kids in Maracaibo Lake, from where the oil of Venezuela is extracted. And our idea was to continue uh, portraying these kids, and to see the process of this community of Congo Mirador through their experience. It was meant to be a growing up story, coming of age story,
Coming of
as,
age
as you
story.
say, as it is said in the States. And the fact is that this village is turning, it is been turning into a swamp rapidly, as a consequence of the climate change. And we saw as well in this village, mirrored what was happening to us in our families and in our society for years already, which is that we've been part of a process of polarization, as it's called. But you hear polarization is kind of a cold term, but this what means is a very painful process of separation in the families, and as well of radicalization of the mind of the citizen behavior, of the political behavior. And finally, the whole society became more and more vulnerable. And within that process, I mean, when one is in the middle of it, one doesn't realize, but within that process, the practices of abusive power were becoming more and more,
Apparent.
yeah, like it was making more and more pressure on the private lives of people, to a point in which, it became a totalitarian system. So we were seeing all these things in this village as well. And within the fact that this village was becoming a swamp, people was needing desperately the help from the country, from the state. And and at the same time, this division, and at the same time, uh, merciless bombardment of propaganda and of several populist practices, that we thought, okay, I mean, let's tell this story. This is the opportunity of telling what has happened to us, at the same time as serving as a medium for the people to talk through the film. So then that's how it happened. And coming of age story became something different. It became the story of mainly three female characters: one political leader called Tamara Villasmil, who, well, if you have seen the film, is actually a very complex character. And yeah, I suggest you to watch it. So then she's quite unique. But then she's the person that has the access to most of the resources in the village. And on the other hand, there is the teacher of the only school of the village, and she's been threatened of being kicked out of her position as a teacher because she doesn't belong to the party of the government. And as a third person that we portrayed is this little girl that is a fishing girl, that we were telling her story since she was 9 years old until her teenage years.
Years.
Yeah. So then this is pretty much what the story is. I really don't want to say how it ends up, but we follow the destiny of this village. And through that, we went through a process as well of, I would say, understanding that these divisions through the radicalization of the ideologies.
The political positions, yeah.
It is so damaging, and it's an illusion in reality, because in the case of Venezuela, there were no, like, most of the people we lost. We had an enormous loss. Actually, Venezuela is a devastated country at the moment. And so then it was for us as well a journey, a human journey in that sense.
Yeah, I want to talk more about the women in the film, and to talk about all of you. But before we do that, I actually want to go to Claudia for a minute, because I think the other thing that's so important about this film is that Venezuela is such a mystery to us in the United States. We don't get a chance to see it through the eyes of Venezuelans actually probably ever. It's kind of, we see this political upheaval and that's about it. So Claudia, you're living in Caracas right now. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the difficulties of making the film, and just a little bit about what the situation is there.
Well, yes. Hello, everyone. Well, we used to be a very rich country in the 80s, 90s. But in these times, and where we shot the film, every trip we made, the situation became more difficult, because we were shooting between 2013 and 2018. So we had to struggle with many different problems, like hyperinflation, the diaspora, because, for example, our crew, we would like to maintain the same crew, because we were like invisible crew in the village, but a lot of members of the crew changed. The shortage of food was one of the challenges, and the difficult conditions in Congo Mirador, because we had to transport the drinkable water, the food, and all the trip with the crew was a long trip to arrive there. So it is complex to film here. We are always prepared because we are resilient, but yes, it has. Every time we came there was another difficulty. But we had a great women in the production team. For example, Carmen Rivas, she was our first production manager. And she used also to cook and to prepare arepas for breakfast, for example. And another producer was Andreina Gomez. She convinced Tamara to open the doors to our crew. That was my connection is lost. Okay, that was very important for us. I mean, to get into Tamara's house and into Tamara's life was crucial for this film, and the persuasion of our women in the production team made that possible. So well, we are warriors.
Yeah. And Debbie, we were as well dealing with paramilitary, and now that Claudia is mentioning Andreina and so on, I mean, it was through their intermediation that it was possible that we all did live together in Tamara's house, and we were shooting, all these negotiations, and just like go through them with certain naturality that did allow that it continued for years.
Yeah, I was amazed. I noticed that in the credits that you thanked her for the hospitality of staying in her house. And I have to say, I was really amazed. Maybe, Marianela, I'm going to go to you now, and I'm going to ask you about the choice of the women and why it is that you told the story through women, because it's not a story just about women. It's really a story about a country. It's a story about a town or a village, really, that mirrors the situation in the country. And as we were talking about before, actually, in a very interesting way, the world. But why women, and why those three women?
Well, at the beginning, as Annabelle was saying, because we did the short film first, that we were focusing in children's, and the idea was to perhaps follow in a group of children's, but very quickly it became apparent that they were, first it was Joanie. It was the first character, the little girl that we got in contact with and that we connected with her. And we were also, as well, after Natalie and finally Tamara, yeah. But what happened as well is that, the life of women in these towns is very difficult. It's much more difficult than the life of men, yeah? One thing as well is that girls get married really young, and it's very shocking for us when we went there to go through that, yeah? But at the same time, it's something interesting that Tamara, who is the person that had the most power in that town, and also Natalie, who was the teacher, that they were in women in important positions as well, that will mirror as well so well what was happening in our society outside, and we could see that from the very beginning we went there, because it's the lake full of oil, the natural resource of Venezuela, that it has really impact our whole society, our whole society, and also the idea of how Tamara was using the power and his connections with the party to affect the life of the town, and how as well Natalie was in a way standing to her in a very humble and a very shy way, but she was very strong too. So you have these very strong women as well in a very difficult situation, in a way, expressing very well the conflict of what we all were living outside. And also, another important thing that I think comes really well across in the story, because it was such a long time that, we were following the stories, how you see the impact of populism in the life of people, through how Annabelle was saying, through the propaganda, through the political practice. And I think it's a very important story in today's world, where you see populism all over, from the left or from the right, from whatever you call it. In the end, are those things, those kind of regimes, that impose on people in this type of practices, and divide societies and destroys democracy, which is what has happened in our country.
Yeah. I think, again, the fact that it's a story that's told by women, I'm wondering, Annabelle, if you could talk about some of the choices that you made. Do you think that the film would have been a different film if it was made by men? People are always asking me, as the director of Women Make Movies, do women make films differently than men? And I would say, yes.
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, I do think so. There is something that has to do with the attitude that one has in the moment of being there present. And this film that we choose to say it through an observational way required, of course, lots of, instead of being pushing, watching, it required a more receptive attitude. And it was very quick in the as a method of working and of actually shooting, that we would say, no, we let's shoot not with the eyes, let's shoot through the listening. So then you would not cut this shot in the moment in which it visually did work. And no, it was about what was the energy of what was going on in front of you. So then this, I would say, to begin with, that I find really a feminine attitude to be in life, and this capacity of observing through that, receptive listening type of way. I think it allows to tell a story through many details, and they are these kind of details. Actually, I realized that we are telling a story of power, of abuse of power, from a particular angle that probably a man wouldn't choose to, So then, this I find really a great realization for us as a film team and as storytellers to be aware of that, to really understand that this is a powerful way of telling things, because in a way it grabs a whole picture.
Mhm.
So then I don't deny that, so overall at the beginning there it was very charged of the intention of the filmmaking was very charged of anger. I don't deny that. And this transformed into something else that maybe allowed to widen, and to really see with empathy this different characters, even though they were apparently uh, just antagonic. And it was difficult to get out of this chauvinistic way of seeing the situation. And then again, I think it has a lot to do with a kind of, eh, as well, humbleness to approach a whole phenomenon. And this is a very woman's. I find, maybe it's a big generalization, but women, we tend to be a bit like that.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree. I mean, I think there are scenes that are in the film that would never be there if it was a male director.
For instance,
For instance, I don't think that you would have been commenting on the girl who gets married at 13 and the way that you shot that and what you showed us, the way that it was presented. I think the film is truly exceptional because there is no narrator, because you let the story tell itself, because the characters are so complex, but yet we see them in a very rounded kind of way. And I also think that it has to do with the intimacy that you have with the characters, which I think is because you're women. And I don't know that
Yes.
you would have been able necessarily to have that. Oftentimes you feel like you're sitting in the room with them, especially with the girls, with the young girls. Yeah. And this film is such an accomplishment of women that I want to use that as a jumping off point to go back to Claudia and to ask her a little bit about what's happening with Venezuelan women filmmakers. All of you are from Venezuela. I'm going to just tell a very little story that I actually was in Venezuela in 1985 when it was this rich country that Claudia you were talking about. It was quite extraordinary, really. And Women Make Movies was invited to present films at the Ateneo, the Lincoln Center of Caracas, which was a wonderful, wonderful honor. And I had incredible women like Fina Torres, the fiction filmmaker, and a wonderful woman named Franca Donda, who unfortunately passed away, but was very vibrant in the film community. And there was a group of women called Grupo Miércoles, women filmmakers that were working there then in Venezuela. So what's happening now? Please tell us if you can. Yeah.
Yes, well, historically, female Venezuelan directors had received the most important recognitions in the film festivals, and some of them represent the milestones of our filmmaking history. And since the end of the 50s, when Margot Benacerraf won 2 awards in Cannes,
Yes.
until recent days, when Mariana Rondon won the first Golden Shell given to a Latin American female director with Pelo Malo. Well, we have been moving forward. Now, even if the percentage of female directors hardly signifies the 20% of the Venezuelan filmmaking community, few of them had driven it strong. Most of them are in the diaspora now, and that's why we had created very recently, a new union of the Venezuelan Filmmaker Association called HEVA, which means like chic in Venezuelan slang.
Yeah.
And yes, and we are willing to give the opportunity to new filmmakers, and also to with a consolidated career to give tools and opportunities, and also to create a network to help us to help between each other, no? Because we are aware that we have a strong power now, and it's important to create awareness about the fragile circumstances of the Venezuelan filmmaking now.
Absolutely.
Or
Yep.
from the state, and and all the Venezuelan institutions are supporting Venezuelan filmmaking. We are orphans.
Yeah.
No? Fortunately, the international organizations like Women Make Movies and others are supporting our films, no? And without these kind of organizations, it wouldn't be possible to produce Once Upon a Time in Venezuela.
Yes, yes. This film actually, in that sense, is like we kept the nationality of the Venezuelan nationality, but it was because of strong will, and it is a miracle. Marie was saying, like, to make now a narrative of a Venezuelan story is nothing less than a miracle. So then we are trying to to get together to protect that, to be able to continue telling our stories within the international community.
Marianella, you wanted to say something before. Marianella?
Oh no, it's me. Sorry. No. No, totally agree with Annabelle. I was telling her, right now, being able to make this movie and also watch it, this reality is almost a miracle. The effort, the amount of effort that it took to go there, to create that relationship, to be able to witness that, like firsthand there is it's a huge effort of thanks to all the international institutions and the work of everybody, that everyone, it's a Venezuelan team, but also we have all this force, from different countries that support us to tell this story. Otherwise it's, and I have shown it to a lot of friends as well in the US, and they think it's kind of unique film right now because of this observation, for being filmed for over a period of time. And it just give it an edge because of you can really get to know the reality in that little town, and through that, the characters and the little town, you get to know as well what's going on in Venezuela. It's a portrait of the situation.
Yeah, I think of the film as the little engine that could, because it started with this very small little film, The Barrel, and then it started growing and growing. And I have to say, every time I heard from, I should mention Sepp Bruderman, who is the producer of the film, and really such a surprise, such a key figure in the film. And every time that Annabelle or Sepp got in touch with me, I thought, they're still doing it. They're still doing it. Yes, they're still doing it. And when Catapult came on and gave you funding, and Chicken and Egg, and actually the San Francisco Foundation came in very, very early. But I know that took a lot of work. So I'm thinking that there are women filmmakers that are listening to this. So I'd love for you to give them some advice, Annabelle. What would be the advice that you would give to a filmmaker from Latin America or a young woman filmmaker anywhere about what does it take to get a film like this made? And what's your advice?
Well, first of all, it takes an unconditional love towards the story that you want to tell, and that it comes from a true necessity or true feeling from a very deep place in yourself. I guess this is the first engine that pushes oneself to keep and to have a vision, a clear vision, even though one doesn't see exactly what the film is gonna be. But if it's full of heart, I guess, and I hope that this brings to a good port. I would say as well that overall, if one hasn't had this experience in an international environment, there is a community out there of artists, whichever in whichever condition one is, even though if one is in a totalitarian system or whatever, as an artist, that is so important to keep the freedom on how to express and how to think, how to express what you think, truly think, that this network of and community of artists is out there, and it's just a question of connecting, and that I think is of an enormous importance to get, first of all, confidence, and to trust in yourself, but as well to confront your ideas, and something that did help us, Seb, me, Claudia, Marianela, was this dialogue, permanent dialogue with people, like, for instance, you, like so many people that have been so generous in reading our treatments, seeing our cuts, and this dialogue that is part of being of a community, I think that saves one from getting mad, first of all, but as well save one's soul, and makes it possible to, because one alone I don't think is possible, but with the together, being together, helps big time. At least to us it was like this, and we are here like this, the three of us, we are very open to share our, well, I am talking with for you girls, I hope that this is
Of
good.
course, of course.
Sure they are.
But
I'm just
we
going
are,
to interrupt Annabelle for 1 minute. I want to continue, but I just want to let people know that we are going to, we're about to start doing a Q&A. So please let us know what questions you might have for Claudia, for Marianela, or for Annabelle, about anything about the film, about the making of the film, or about Venezuela and the political situation there. So, Marianela, maybe you could, did you want to also comment on advice that you might have for young filmmakers?
Oh, well, I think what Anna and Annabelle just said is essential. You have to find as well a story that you want to tell, but obviously, just go out there and do it. That's the first step. Sometimes you think it's difficult, but you have to give the first step and start making it. That will be an advice as well. Not be afraid to ask for help. There is a lot of people that you can share their experience, and like we have this group, but we have it's a big community that we can rely on each other, and that's how you going out there and just without that fear that sometimes you can have of that'll be my advice.
Claudia, do you want to join that conversation?
Yes, I would like to add that, well, we have to study a lot, to do a lot of research, to ask to another colleagues, how was the experience in that festival, or with that institution or grant, and to insist, because this is a long shot. So you have to receive a lot of no, 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 and then maybe you receive a yes. So if you are passionate with your story, as Annabelle and Marianela said, you have to struggle until the end.
What was, Annabelle, what do you think was your biggest, the biggest challenge in making the film?
well, first of all, to find a method. It took, I would say, a year or so to really understand how we wanted to. So we had this collaboration with Mari for a reason, and the reason is that the story was essential for us, and how to structure it in a way that it did communicate an emotion clearly, and to bring this together with the actual practice of making of following somebody and observing and filming, this was difficult to understand how to interweave these two processes and to actually make it in one flow. And the way in which we did it was that we would go one day shooting, and then at night we would discuss about how it was. And we had like general ideas on it took a lot of artists, storytelling artisan work. So then we had, ideas on storylines, and then what we would discuss how this that we saw today would fit into that, and how was the actual current of the actual story of the person. So then this was, it was a whole development of an actual method on how to do this.
Because you have the individual stories, but you have as well the collective story. So, and what each of these individual stories can, provide for the collective story. And, documentaries are so difficult as well, because it has so many stages. It's like, the stories are, you film it, and then the story goes again to rewrite in the editing. So it's a long process of how you create a story. You have a concept, and then you have how to follow the story naturally. So it's difficult, when we were doing it, Annabelle and I, we would read books and we would just watch things to try to find, how people have done it,
And we are going to write a book about how we did it. Because
Yes, you are. Fantastic.
There's no much literature about this. And it's like, there's no mystery. Also, this
it's a mystery.
It's a mystery. And it's like, no, guys, I mean, it's not such a, it's just a question of one step after the other. And this is great, a learning process.
I want to see the book. I have a couple of questions. The first is actually something that I was wondering myself, which is, how is the relationship? How is Tamara and Natalia doing? Are you at all in touch with them? Do you know where they are? And how do they? And I don't know. This is actually. I'm curious. Have they seen the film? And what do they think about their participation in the film?
Well, Tamara is moved into, this is the super spoiler, but we don't see it in the film, but it's like, it takes out a bit of the illusion of how it ends. However, yes, Tamara did move to an inland small city called Santa Barbara del Zulia, and a bit of with the resources that she did gather, she has a house in a it's really a poor area, and she has already a business running there with no, she's incredible. But in human terms, I think Tamara is unfortunately a bit alone, and this is probably her, the thing that she didn't really want to be alone. And she had seen the film, but through this media and with the streaming of Venezuela, and I have not been there, so then I'm not so sure how was the perception of it. I do know that she is, as well as us, we have received some comments, like nasty comments from the local guys of the party, and this is the actual worry of all of us on how which repercussion is going to have in her life after the film is to be shown there. I am going to go in February actually to show the film in present, and to bring them, and to make a gathering and a living together. All of these people are displaced. Most of the majority of them are displaced. Natalie lives in the same town, Santa Barbara. She did try a little bit in Colombia, and as thousands of Venezuelans that are in Colombia, they had moved within COVID or a little bit before. Within this frame of COVID, what happens is that in Colombia there's no jobs, like these daily jobs that are what most Venezuelans do. In Colombia, there are 1.5 million Venezuelans as refugees. So she did move back to Santa Barbara, hires a room with her daughter, and is trying to make ends meet somehow. And she had seen the movie as well, like this, in this way, actually with a phone, with her phone. So then, again, the perception, through a streaming is difficult to say. And for Natalie, this film is like a reivindication within her community, because she's still bullied, within that environment, even
She's
though
still, sorry, I didn't understand. She's still what? A bullet?
bullied
She had
from
been
the, so she doesn't get a job within the
Uh,
frame of the party, or as a teacher, or as a, so, and she lost her job and trying to make ends meet. And I hope to, normally I was through WhatsApp in contact with her, and now she's out of WhatsApp, and it's been more complex to get in contact with her. Joaini, the little girl, she is in another fishing village in inland, and is together with this much older guy.
oh.
And I know about her from, again, through Facebook. Her cousins, they write to me in the Facebook, and yeah, the idea is to bring them all to an event, a nice event. So the
That
dream
would be
is
so
to have
great.
a nice event and a talk, and in
How old is
Maracaibo.
Yoni now? How old is Yoni now?
Joaini, 17 years
17.
old.
Yeah.
But I think Tamara and Natalie, while we were filming, they were in confrontation. It was sometimes hard to go from the house of one to the house of another one,
Of course.
because it was like, so I don't know, because one of the questions is if they have a relationship, and I don't think, but we don't think so.
No, not at all. No,
I'm sure they don't.
not
But
not
maybe
yet.
this movie, when you watch the movie, perhaps there is another type
But
of reflection.
But
Yeah,
Tamara has not realized that she's such a. I wrote to her. I mean, you don't know this, but you're a film star, and you don't know it, because people relate to her like so close. I mean, she becomes really central of the attention in the film.
there's a question which is a little bit connected, which, how did you deal with being safe when you were shooting? Was it safe there? And was there a lot of crime, delinquency, gang?
Yeah. Yes, in the area, I mean, the whole country, it is pestered by armed groups. Since year 2008, there was this flow of guns into the civil society that increased the guns in the society in an exponential way. And nowadays, what happens is that there are many of these groups, and Maracaibo Lake is particularly taken by that for years. Actually, it's a tradition practically. So then there's all kind of paramilitaries, and we did live with one of these groups in Tamara's house. And with that, what I'm saying is that, I mean, there is no such a thing as safety in Venezuela. Yeah. So this is, and we are culturally, like, used to this. And within that, there are many gaps in which one moves. So we were sitting there with these very young guys that were not older than 22, that were paramilitaries, that had actually killed people, but we were still being able to sit there and make jokes, and so
Wow.
it's a reality that moves.
But it became more dangerous as the time passed as well. Towards the end of the filming, it was increases the difficulty and the violence, because that's also what's happening in the country, and that's also what Annabelle is saying about the paramilitia that took the town.
Yeah, and actually we didn't show one of the reasons why we didn't record that process that did happen in the village, because the village was actually taken by them, and what happens is that they take control on the places, and it's a symptom of the abandonment of these places, and how this focus of power take control, and we didn't record that, among other things, to keep the safety of the people, of the film crew, but as well of the people of Tamara, and so then this, yeah, might have to do on what measurements we took. Well, that, these kind of precautions of not touching too much these guys.
Yes,
Was
actually,
there
I have
also
to confess that sometimes I avoid to hiring female film producers. Depends on where
uh,
we are going to shoot, because it's risky, it's dangerous. So I have to protect them sometimes.
wow.
Depends
But in
on.
this case, I think as well, Annabelle, that for a long time, you have the protection as well of the people of the town in a
Oh,
way,
yes.
because that's how you actually make it in these places, because you have this connection, and they will protect you. But obviously, as it increases, as the time passes as well, they also felt vulnerable to
Yeah.
what was happening.
I mean, everybody has guns there. Everybody, even o sea, in the film
In
group.
the film, you see it. You
O
see
sea,
it in the film.
yeah, exactly. So it's the way in which this is, and one has to
Wow.
deal with
And
it.
our gun was the camera.
Yes. Yeah, I was wondering about shooting in terms of the you had such access when you went to Maracaibo, and you were in this room with all of these politicians, and when all of these different meetings, were other people in the how did they react to it? The other people in the town. I mean, did they know what kind of film you were making? Were they curious and interested? Did they know that it was about kind of this political division?
The government people.
Yeah.
No, this governor, I mean, he right now he's not in Venezuela, but in Mexico apparently, and he has another position, and he has not seen the film. So then we don't know what is gonna be. We don't know what is gonna happen there, even though. So we did shoot it within the event that he in that moment had this program of communication with the communities, and then the people, the Tamara basically had this opportunity of going there and talk to him, and then we did a squeeze there, and so then it was within that aperture and this public event that I mean, I don't think he's at all aware, or that he's thinking that the way in which he's doing things is at all demagogy or something. He's
Yeah.
just doing what he does. So, but well, let's see how he receives the film. Other people in the party, they had not seen the film because, as I said, it's been shown mainly in platforms, and in platforms it doesn't really work in the whole country. It's very elitist. And
Yeah.
now we are in some cinemas recently. They opened the cinemas on Wednesday,
Last
last
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
In
So then we're
Venezuela.
in
Yes.
Venezuela, so we are in 9 cinemas, but the
Wow.
entry, but the people cannot afford the entry. So then,
Of course.
thanks to
Yeah.
IDFA, we are making together with our distributors these mobile cinemas, and
Oh,
show
great.
it for free in the squares. So then, in that event, we are bringing the people in within Maracaibo, within the area where this state is, Zulia state, and in that moment we're gonna see when they watch the film. But we have received some comments from them, like through the I wouldn't say threatening or something, but yes, they are kind of aware that it's a critical film, so we are probably
But I
they want
think also the Venezuelan audience, that they had the opportunity to see the film, have really connected with the film deeply. At least I feel it like that. I don't know what you think, Claudia and Annabelle, but maybe hasn't seen in the whole country, but the diaspora, or everyone that live abroad, and some of the people that have seen in Venezuela, I think they have connected with the
Oh
story
yes,
in
oh
a
yes,
very deep way.
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Actually, we presented it 3 days ago in a public park, and there were like 60 people, and we were talking with all this community. It was a middle class community, and they were very interested in how we should, and also to create a debate about the Venezuelan situation. That's our goal, to make possible this space for discussion, and how we
which normally doesn't exist, which normally does not exist. And it's like you're in the gap there, trying to keep these bridges between people, these things that connect people.
And also, I think it's important as well that all this that it was filmed with Tamara is because they feel it was so natural. What they do there with the political power that they have is natural. And I think when you see it on the screen, it really asks you questions. I think it's a film that it's going to ask questions to all the Venezuelans that see it, but also other parts of the world, about the political, the power, the abuse of power that sometimes, it occurs all over in these little towns, and that thing that you do, this is abuse of power. And I think as well that being there allowed us to also shoot that, to film in that respect, something that is so difficult, but it's because they don't see it as it's a practice. This is what happened, it's not.
Well, there's two questions that I want to put together because we're running out of time, and they are connected. So one question was from, I guess, a filmmaker looking for advice about how to get a film made. It's a femicide story. Of course, it's very, very important. She's saying that she doesn't have any budget yet to shoot with the best possible crew. And the other question is, as a Venezuelan woman and documentarian, I would love to know more about the process of funding. Did you shoot first and pitch it to raise funds, or was it the opposite? And how did you identify which organizations to approach? Mm-hmm. So I guess it's really about how do you get a film off the ground, and how did you do it? Mm-hmm. So I know, for example, that I met you, Annabelle, at Tribeca, the Tribeca Film Institute All Access program, which, with funds from Heineken, used to have a program to support Latin American filmmakers. That program's gone, and that fund is gone, unfortunately, or that institute is now gone. But I'm wondering, how did you get your start? And maybe that will help the woman who asked the question about how to get started without a budget.
Well, first of all, we took the story from within our background. So it was not something that was out of nothing. So, and I had some footage that I already shot in 2008. And in that moment, there was a series called Why Poverty, and they were calling for filmmakers to pitch stories. And then we had different options. One of the stories we wanted to tell was about a girl being sexual, how the girls are sexualized so early in Venezuela. And this story didn't make it then. And then we proposed another story with these kids, prison kids, and it became The Barrier. But it was within that specific call. So I would say, first of all, besides that, what we did was together with Seb, who is a visionary, he's this kind of person that doesn't accept a no from life, and go through this, and he really gets the whole list of institutions that possible that are giving some kind of grants and something, and then with that list that actually is not this encouraging. It's a long list of places that one can go to. And then we send applications, but I'm talking of over 100, Wow. I mean, Shepard that is there, he can tell better. And what you get are rejections, and and then you make this skin towards the rejections and don't take it personal, and make we were thinking in making an installation, an artistic installation with the rejections like all over the place. Let's just take it easy somehow, and out of those. But for a filmmaker, I think it's essential. There are institutions that are essential. One of them, of course, there's Women Make Movies. First of all, first number one, and there is Chicken and Eggs. There is the International Documentary Film Festival or Film Institute of Amsterdam is for independent filmmakers. This is your home, guys. I mean, this is the place, as well as hot dogs. So these are places that are not only places to get fun, but to really connect in concrete with the community of filmmakers. And I would say they are, even if it's not possible to get in one. I mean, we did apply like 5 times, you know what I mean, to each one of these institutions. And even though what you get are rejections, there is always the option of connecting with the community. And this, I think, is the first thing to really do. Like, don't get discouraged if there's no funds. And if you're making a film that is next to you, not like in my case that I'm in Vienna and going to Venezuela, well, it's the circumstance that I have to deal with if I want to tell Venezuelan stories. But if you can't really do it in a place that you don't need to pay, this actually helps to start.
Also, as well, that you just go and film something with a little camera, film something that you can just put it together, even if it's not, shot in the best way. But then also allows you to research, and through that you start writing, and you think, oh, look what happened, and then you can show someone, even if it's 3 minutes of that material. And this is also something that captures attention, if you have found a good subject or a good visual, so that's a little step that you can do with not so much resources,
And then institute, and if you go to the Women Make Movies webpage, there is such information all over, including institutions that give funds. That really helps to have an ubication in the environment in which you can move. That I think is as well one of the first steps to take this off the ground once you have had some material and some impulse that can be put in a one page, an idea that is a little bit concrete.
Well, I think that's actually fantastic advice. I couldn't give it better myself. I want to thank all of you for an amazing conversation, for an amazing film, and wish you all just amazing luck in the future. And I think it is so exciting that with IDFA's help, you're having a chance to screen it in Venezuela, because I think that's really super, super important.
Oh yes, it's the main
reason.
So thank you again, and Claudia, Marianella, and Annabelle, and thank you all for joining us. And if
thank you, Debra.
Thank you,
see
Debra.
the film. It's an incredible film.
Thank you so much,
Debra.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.